Ever imagine getting that dream call? You know, like the one where some big industry icon wants to work with you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's exactly what happened to David Jenyns, the author of Systemology.
Really?
Yeah. Michael E. Gerber, yeah, the E-Myth Gerber,
Oh, wow, yeah.
his wife reached out to Jenyns to manage a book launch for him.
Wow.
It even led to an offer to run Gerber's whole business. Wild, huh?
That is amazing.
But here's the thing. Jenyns was only able to do it because his own business could run without him.
I see.
And that's what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
How to build a business that works, whether you're there or not, using the principles from Systemology.
That's so important. It's a fascinating example of how much systems can do for you. You just never know what opportunities are going to pop up,
Yeah.
and if you're always stuck in the day-to-day, you could miss out. Jenyns actually breaks down building these systems into 4 stages: survival, stationary, scalable, and saleable. Think about your own business for a second. Which one of those feels most accurate to you right now?
I bet a lot of people are thinking about those first two, survival and stationary.
Yeah.
It's just so easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of, just keeping things going.
Exactly. And that's where a lot of business owners, I think, get tripped up. They're working in the business so much, they never work on it, like Gerber always said.
Right.
That's where the critical client flow, or CCF, from Systemology comes in.
Okay, the CCF. This sounds like it could really change things. What is it all about?
Imagine you're mapping out, like, the journey of your ideal client,
Uh-huh.
from when they first even hear about you all the way to when they're a loyal customer who keeps coming back for more. That's what the CCF is. And it helps you figure out those 7 to 12 crucial systems that make that whole journey work.
Oh, okay.
It's all about those core processes that really make your business tick.
So if you're like a consultant, maybe your CCF would include things like attracting leads from your website, then converting those leads into consultations, delivering really great work for those clients, and then getting them to recommend you to other people, something like that.
Exactly. And the best part about mapping this out is you start seeing where things might be getting stuck. Maybe your website's getting tons of traffic, but almost no one is booking a consultation.
Right.
Well, that would tell you that you need to work on the system for making it super easy and attractive for visitors to your website to schedule a call.
It's like you get to have X-ray vision for your business.
Yeah.
Jenyns talks about this guy, Mike Rhodes, who got a little carried away and tried to systematize everything in his business, like hundreds of systems. It was just too much.
Yeah, he went overboard. Just creating more and more systems doesn't always mean more success. It can actually have the opposite effect if you aren't focusing on the right things. That's where that 80-20 rule comes in. You have to prioritize the 20% of systems that get you 80% of the results.
I love that. It's like working smarter, not harder. But I have to admit, when I hear the word systemization, I kind of freeze up a little. It just feels like it's something that only super organized people can do.
You actually don't have to be a systems genius to make this work. Systemology talks about the systems champion, someone who just naturally loves creating order and processes. They're always making lists and organizing things.
Oh, I know a few people like that. So how do you actually go about capturing these systems? Is it like writing up these giant manuals no one will ever read?
No, not at all. Jenyns argues that the usual way of documenting things can be way too complex and take forever. Systemology actually has a much simpler way. You just record someone doing the task and have them explain what they're doing while they're doing it.
Okay.
Like making a video tutorial, but even easier.
That sounds much more approachable for sure.
Yeah.
I bet a lot of people are probably thinking, what if my first try at making a system isn't perfect?
Oh, that's totally normal. The first version is hardly ever going to be perfect. It's more about getting it down, getting it to work, and then just improving it over time. Aim for good enough, not perfect,
Right. I can get on board with that. So we've got our systems champion and we've started getting those systems down. But how do we make sure it doesn't turn into a big mess?
That's where the department's responsibilities and team chart comes in, or the DRTC. It's basically like a super-powered org chart
Okay.
that maps out not just who's on the team, but what they do and where the important knowledge is. It helps you figure out if you're relying too much on just one person, and it makes sure important tasks can be handled by multiple people.
So it all comes back to freeing the business owner, right?
Exactly. The end goal is to have a business that can do well even when you're not there.
I bet some people are thinking my team is going to hate this whole systemization thing. They're probably worried about their jobs or being asked to do more work. Have you ever had that kind of pushback?
All the time. Change can be scary, and systemization can feel especially threatening to people who are used to doing things their own way. Jenyns talks about this in the book, acknowledging that some people are going to resist. He even tells a story about his own manager, Melissa, who had to make a rule to protect the team from Jenyns' own urgent requests.
She had to tell people to ignore the CEO?
Yeah.
That's wild. What happened?
It's actually a great story. It just goes to show that even the business owner needs to respect the systems.
Sure.
And it also proves how important it is to have a strong manager who can champion systemization and make sure everyone follows it, even when things get crazy.
It makes me think of Walt Disney, the visionary, and his brother Roy, who was the operations guy.
Yeah, I see that.
They were both really important, but it was Roy who made sure everything ran on time.
Right.
So speaking of keeping things running smoothly, let's talk about software. Jenyns recommends using separate systems for managing your systems and managing your projects.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Think of it this way. You've got your system for storing and using all those documented processes, right? It's like your library of how-tos.
Uh-huh.
And then you've got your project management system, which is for assigning tasks, tracking progress, and working with your team every day. Keeping them separate avoids unnecessary confusion and makes both systems work better.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Now this brings us to the topic of scaling. Jenyns is very clear that scaling isn't about forcing growth. It's about being ready for it. So how does systemization play into that?
Well, imagine you suddenly get a huge wave of new customers.
Okay.
Or you get an amazing partnership offer. Are you going to be ready to handle it? Or is your whole operation going to fall apart?
Yeah.
If you've got solid systems, you'll be able to scale smoothly and efficiently without losing quality or burning yourself out.
So it's about creating a foundation that can support growth when those cool opportunities come along. But the interesting thing is, you might not even know what those opportunities are until you make space for them. Right?
It's true.
Jenyns tells a story in the book about how his own TEDx talk happened. He had no idea it was going to happen, but because he focused on systemizing his business, he had the time and energy to go after those unexpected things.
Yeah, and it's a perfect example of how systemization doesn't kill creativity. It actually makes more room for it. When you're not always putting out fires and feeling overwhelmed, you can actually start to think bigger, be more innovative, and go after those things you're passionate about that you might have been putting off.
I'm really starting to get the bigger picture here. But let's be real. Systems need attention.
Right.
They need to be tweaked, updated, made better. So how do we do that?
Well, Jenyns has a whole chapter in the book dedicated to optimizing your systems, and he starts by debunking a common myth that you need to systemize like McDonald's.
Oh, that's a good analogy. It's so easy to feel like you have to create these super detailed, rigid systems for absolutely everything.
Exactly. But McDonald's has been working on their systems for decades, right?
Yeah.
They have a level of scale and consistency that most businesses will never reach, and that's okay. The important thing is to start with the basics, get them working well, and then just refine and optimize as you go along.
It's that good enough mentality again, right?
Yes. Progress over perfection.
But how do you actually know what to optimize? What should you be measuring?
This is where data comes in. You need a way to track your progress and figure out what areas need improvement. That's where that CCF dashboard comes in.
Okay.
Remember that critical client flow that we mapped out before? The dashboard helps you keep track of important metrics at each stage of the flow, so you can see what's working and what needs your attention.
Can you give us some examples of the types of metrics you track on a dashboard like that?
Sure. It depends on your business, of course, but some common ones might be website traffic, lead generation rates, sales conversion rates, average sale price, profit margin, and customer retention rates.
Okay.
By keeping an eye on these things, you can spot those bottlenecks and see where there are opportunities for improvement.
And once you've found an area that needs attention, how do you go about actually making improvements? Is there a specific process that Jenyns recommends?
Yeah, he's big on having a structured approach to problem solving. First, you have to clearly define the problem you're trying to solve. Then you get data to understand what's causing it. After that, you brainstorm different solutions, pick the best one, and put it into action. Finally, you keep track of the results and adjust as you go. It's a cycle of always learning and getting better.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like taking the guesswork out of it, right?
Right.
You're not just hoping something will work.
Exactly.
They're using data and a structured approach to make smart decisions.
Right. And here's another bonus. Once you've got a good systemization foundation, you're in a much better spot to work with consultants and experts.
Oh, really? How so?
You'll be able to clearly explain what your problems are.
Okay.
You'll have data to support what you're saying, and you'll have a system for putting their recommendations into practice and tracking the results. It takes all the frustration and guesswork out of hiring outside help.
That makes sense. You're not just letting someone else take over. You're bringing in experts to help you fine-tune an already well-running machine. Now, earlier we talked about that financial calculator on Jenyns' website for figuring out the cost of not systemizing.
Oh, right.
Can you give us an example of how those 10% improvements can really make a difference?
Sure. Let's say your business currently makes a profit of $250,000.
Okay.
Now, let's say you make 10% improvements in 4 important areas of your CCF: lead generation, sales conversion, customer retention, and pricing.
10% doesn't sound like a huge jump, but I feel like this is where things get interesting.
It is, because these seemingly small gains can have a huge impact on your profit over time.
Right.
By making those 10% improvements in those 4 areas, your profit could increase to almost $450,000. That's almost an 80% increase.
Wow. That really shows the potential of constantly improving your systems, even if the improvements are small at first. That's like they say, little hinges swing big doors.
It's true.
Now, Jenyns finishes the book with a really powerful personal story. Remember Melissa, his amazing systems-oriented manager?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. She had to move back to the U.S.,
Oh,
which really put Jenyns in a tough spot. He had to figure out if he wanted to find someone to replace her, try to run the business himself, or just sell it.
that's a hard decision.
Yeah, it is. But because the business was already systemized, he was able to sell it quickly and get a great price for it.
Wow.
The funny thing is, selling it wasn't even part of his plan originally.
It's amazing what systemization can do.
Yeah.
It gives you choices you didn't even think of before.
Absolutely. It's all about making a business that supports your life, not the other way around.
That's something a lot of people need to hear. I think we get so caught up in working all the time that we forget to make a business that gives us freedom.
That's what's so great about Systemology. It's not about creating some rigid robotic business. It's about making a framework that helps you work smarter, not harder, so you can focus on the things that really matter.
It's like taking all that mental clutter, all those to-do lists that are always in our heads, and putting them into a system that just works.
Exactly. And that frees up your mind to be more creative, more strategic, and just more present in your life.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I have to admit, I was a little unsure about systemization at first. It felt a little too corporate, a
Yeah.
little too restrictive. But the way Jenyns explains it is so different.
Yeah.
It's about making systems that work for you,
Yeah.
not the other way around.
And remember, it's not about trying to get everything perfect right away.
Right.
It's about starting where you are, focusing on the systems that will make the biggest difference, and then just constantly tweaking and improving them as you go.
It's a journey, not a destination.
That's it.
So if you're feeling inspired to start building a more systemized business, I'd highly recommend going to Jenyns' website, www.systemology.com/resources. He's got a bunch of free templates and tools there, including the CCF template, the DRTC template, and that financial calculator we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really great place to start putting these ideas into practice.
And remember that quote from Jenyns we mentioned earlier?
Yeah.
Opportunities rarely come at the end of a steady upward curve. Success is lumpy, and opportunity knocks when you're least expecting it.
That's so true. If you're always scrambling just to keep up, you might miss those amazing chances that come your way.
By systemizing your business, you create the space and the freedom to take those unexpected opportunities and make the life you really want.
That's a really great way to put it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into systemology.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Until next time.
Oh, yeah, she had to move back to the U.S.
Right.
It put Jenyns in a tough spot. He had to decide if he was going to find someone to replace her or manage the business himself or just sell it.
That's a tough choice.
Yeah, it is. But because his business was systemized, he was able to sell it quickly and for a really good price.
That's incredible.
And what's really interesting is selling it wasn't even part of his plan at first.
That's a great example of what systems can do for you.
Yeah.
They give you options you didn't even know you had.
Exactly. It's about building a business that works for your life, not the other way around.
I think that's something so many entrepreneurs need to hear. We get so caught up in the hustle of it all
Yeah.
that we forget to build a business that gives us freedom and choices.
That's what's so great about Systemology. It's not about creating some rigid robotic business. It's about creating a framework that lets you work smarter, not harder, so you can focus on what really matters to you.
It's like taking all the mental clutter,
Yeah.
all those to-do lists that are always swimming around in our heads,
Uh-huh.
but actually putting them into a system you can trust to work.
Exactly. And that frees up your mind to be more creative, more strategic, more present in your life.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive. I have to admit, I was a little skeptical of systemization at first.
Oh, really?
It just felt a bit too corporate, a bit too restrictive.
Yeah.
But the way Jenyns approaches it is so different.
Yeah.
It's about making systems that work for you, not the other way around.
And remember, it's not about being perfect right away.
Right.
It's about starting where you are focusing on the systems that'll make the biggest difference and then just constantly refining and improving them over time.
Absolutely. It's a
Yeah.
journey, not a destination.
Exactly.
So if you're feeling inspired and you want to start building a more systemized business, I highly recommend checking out Jenyns' website, www.systemology.com/resources. He has tons of free templates and tools there, including that CCF template, the DRTC template, and that financial calculator we talked about.
Oh, yeah, that's a great resource.
It's a great place to start putting these ideas into action.
And don't forget that quote we mentioned earlier. Opportunities rarely come at the end of a steady upward curve. Success is lumpy, and opportunity knocks when you're least expecting it.
So true. If you're always just trying to keep up, you might miss those amazing opportunities that come your way.
By systemizing your business, you create this space and the freedom to take those unexpected opportunities and actually create the life you want.
What a great way to put it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into systemology.
It was my pleasure.
We'll see you next time.